Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Parr, and on this episode of Math Up to Par, we are going to be talking about perimeter and area. So perimeter, that is measuring around the outside of a shape, okay? So perimeter is the path or the distance around any plane figure. Let me make that a little smaller so it fits. So perimeter is the path or distance around any plane figure. So if I were to draw a shape right here, okay, my perimeter would be this red line, okay? It would be the distance around it. How long is this line? If I took this red line and I stretched it out, how far would it stretch? That's the perimeter. To find the perimeter of any polygon, so a polygon, remember, is a closed figure, so it can't have any openings, okay? This one doesn't. It can't have any curved sides, which is good. This one doesn't, so like circles or things like that wouldn't work. So when you're finding, a polygon which has straight sides, closed sides, you will need to add the lengths of all the sides, okay? So when you are finding the perimeter, you'll need to know what the sides equal, and you'll need to add up this plus this plus this plus this. This one has 4 sides, it's a quadrilateral, but if it has more sides, you would need to add up more of those sides. So let's look at this shape right here, okay? This shape is a square, okay? And it has these weird little lines on the square, okay? These lines are telling me that this side is equal in length to this side, and it is also equal in length to this side and to this side. If you know about squares, you know that all 4 sides are the same length. So if this side is 3, then this side is also 3 inches, this side is 3 inches, and this side is 3 inches. So I need to go back, let's see, I need to add the lengths of all the sides. Now, because all 4 of these sides are the same, instead of adding 3 4 times, you could also do a multiplication problem to represent that. 3 times 4. This is not to be mistaken that you can always multiply to find the perimeter, because you won't be able to, and you'll see with some of our next shapes why that's true. But because it's a square and all 4 sides are the same, I can add 3 4 times, which is the same thing as saying 3 times 4. So 3 4 times is the same thing as 12, right? So my final answer is the perimeter is 12 inches. That's the distance around the shape. If I were to take these sides and stretch them out, they would be 12 inches long. Let's try another one. All right, this looks like a rectangle, okay? And you'll notice that this side has one line and this side has one line. This is marking that these 2 sides are congruent to each other or equal to each other. This side has 2 lines and this side has 2 lines. That means that this side is congruent to this side. Okay, so when I'm adding, this one is labeled as 4 meters, but this one is not. That's okay though, because what I'm gonna do is if this one's 4, I know that this one is 4, so I'm gonna add up 4 plus 4, right? And 4 plus 4 is 8. If this side is 12 and this side is 12, then I'm going to add 12 plus 12 equals 24. Okay, well that tells me the lengths of these 2 sides, and that tells me the lengths of these 2 sides. So I could go ahead and I could add up 24 plus 8, which would be 32. Okay, I could also, instead of adding them up separately like that, I could have said 12 plus 12 plus 4 plus 4. If I added them all up, I would have still gotten 32. Or you could have added 4 plus 12 is 16, and then this 4 plus 12 is 16 and added 2 16s together. Remember, the order you add doesn't matter, and that's because of something called the commutative property. So the order you add doesn't matter, but the numbers you're adding do matter, okay? So the perimeter of the shape, which means the length of all the sides stretched out, is going to be 32m, which stands for meters, okay? Let's look at this trapezoid right here, okay? This trapezoid, not a lot of the sides are equal. So it looks like this side is 4 yards, this side is 6 yards, this side is 5 yards, this side isn't labeled, but I have these lines marking to tell me that they are congruent, okay? So when I'm adding up, I'm gonna add 4 plus 5 plus another 5, because this side is 5 yards too, plus 6. So when I add all of those up, sometimes I use strategies like this to help me. I'll combine 2, okay? And so I can stretch out this line a little bit further. So 4 plus 5 is 9, and 5 plus 6 is 11, and then I can add 9 plus 11 is 20, okay? So sometimes combining numbers helps you from making mistakes because you're not trying to count so many in your head at once. And so when you have a long adding problem, you can group together. Or another even more helpful way to do that is if you had 4 plus 6 and 5 plus 5, you'd want to look for ways to make 10. 5 plus 5 and 4 plus 6 make 10, and adding 10 plus 10 is really easy to get to 20. So if you can make 10s, you should always try to make 10s, but you don't have to, okay? So our final answer, that the perimeter of this shape is 20 yards. Okay, guys. So now we're going to find the perimeter of this regular octagon, okay? The reason I said the word regular is because we had to define this octagon. An octagon is a polygon with 8 sides, okay? But typically we think of this shape when we think of an octagon. We think of a stop sign with all 8 sides equal, right? Well, there are such things as octagons that have 8 sides that are not equal. Like it could look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, not all those sides are the same. Okay, that kind of looks like a game controller right there. But a regular octagon has all 8 sides equal and congruent, but an irregular octagon might look a little funky, might look a little different. So because I defined it as a regular octagon, you don't necessarily need the lines to mark telling you that it's congruent, okay? So I can assume that if this side is 5, that this side is 5, and 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 this side is 5, right? So you have 8 sides that are 5. Now, remember, when you have all these sides repeating, you can add up 5 8 times, right? So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? Or the same thing as adding 5 8 times is I could multiply 5 times 8. If you know 5 times 8, you know that it equals 40. I could try to get groups of 10s here, like I showed you with the last problem. And I see that that's 10, and that's 10, and that's 10, and that's 10. So I have 4 groups of 10, which would add up to be 40, right? So either way, you can see that the perimeter of this regular octagon, the distance around the outside, is going to be 40 feet. All right. Now, let's look at these triangles. Triangles are really cool because triangles can be all different sorts of things, okay? We can have equilateral triangles, we can have isosceles triangles, we can have scalene triangles, all those different fancy words. That's for another lesson, but that means that our triangle's sides can have different lengths. So in this triangle over here, you see that they have a lot of different lengths. This is a right triangle, okay, and this is a scalene triangle. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. You can still find the perimeter of this shape. This triangle right here is an equilateral triangle. You hear that word equal, that means all the sides are equal. So for this triangle, I would add 8 3 times, okay? Or I can say 8 times 3, okay? And we know that equals 24. So the perimeter of this triangle is 24 centimeters. Okay? But let's look over here. If you've studied decimals yet, which you may or may not have, and that's okay, I just wanted to show you an example with decimals. But what you would do is you would still add these three numbers up because it tells you the length of each of these sides. So I would add these up, and when I'm adding my decimals, I always make sure to line up my decimal points in a straight line. Okay, you see like right here, I should be able to connect the dots straight down. Okay, so when I'm adding these, I'm gonna fill in a 0 right here as a placeholder because I know about decimals that zeros after don't add any value. Just like a 0 before a whole number doesn't add any value, a 0 at the end of a number in the decimal places does not add any value. So let's add this up. So 3 plus 5 is 8, 8 plus 1 is 9, 9 plus 4 is 13. A decimal point is going to go straight down like I was connecting the dots. I'm going to group a 10 here. I have 7 plus 2 plus 1, which is 10, and then I can say 10 plus 6 is 16. Okay, so the perimeter of this triangle is 16 and 38 hundredths of a meter. Okay, so if you're using decimals to add, if you're used to using decimals, you may find perimeter problems that have decimals. If you're just used to whole numbers, then you would just add up the whole numbers that you see. Decimal adding will come in another lesson, so watch one of my other videos for that. All right, let's talk about area. So first we had talked about perimeter, which was the space outside, right? Well, we had talked about that red line was perimeter. Well, this blue space inside, that's the area. That's the space that fills it up, okay? So the perimeter is like the fence on the outside of the yard. The area is like the grass inside where you play, okay? So area is the surface that's included within a plane figure. So you sometimes hear the word surface area, okay? Area is measured by the number of square units that you need to cover the surface of a plane figure. So you count basically how many squares of that unit you would need to fill inside. We are going to talk today just about the area of a square and an area of a rectangle, okay? For the area of the square, you're going to multiply side length times side length because the side lengths are going to be the same, okay? And for the rectangle, you're going to multiply the length times the width, which is the same thing as what we do for squares, but for rectangles, you might have slightly different lengths and widths. Okay, so let's jump in and see what that looks like. So this square, because it's a square, I know that all four sides are equal. So I know that if this is 7, then this is 7, then this is 7, and this is 7. Okay. To find the area of the square, I multiply the side times the side. So I'm not multiplying all of these together. I just need to know this side and this side, right? Okay. So that means I'm going to multiply 7 times 7. 7 times 7 is equal to 49 inches. That means that if I were to draw out 7 rows like this, okay, and then fill it up with 7, I'm not doing it right now just for the sake of time, but if I were to fill all that up, I would count 49 little squares inside of there, okay? So the area of this square is 49 inches squared, okay? So I'm going to write this little 2 on the outside of top of my inches because that tells me it's a square inch. Let's look at this rectangle, okay? I need to multiply my length times my width. So I need to multiply 9 times 3. Okay, well 9 times 3 equals 27. That means if I were to fill this up, if I filled it up like this, okay, I have 9 little centimeters going across and 3 centimeters going down. That ends up with 27 centimeters squared because they are square centimeters. They're 1 centimeter up, 1 centimeter to the side, and that is 27 total centimeters on the inside. So that would be the area of the rectangle. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Happy practicing.